Okay folks, so we're on to our second topic of Unit 3 and it's called matrices. Okay, so feel free to pause the video at this point and copy in this information. Okay, so today is just going to be a bit of background knowledge on matrices and how to add and subtract two matrices and how to multiply them, which is the hardest part. So it says here, a matrix is a way of presenting information in an array of rows and columns like this. So it looks very similar to a vector, but it's got square brackets around it. Okay, and we just say like this A11 is row 1, column 1 as well. Okay, so feel free to pause the video and copy this in. I'm just going to go on to the first example. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a matrix for you, and we're going to start by labelling different things. Okay, so it's going to be a 3 by 2. So we're going to start with 5 in row 1, column 1, and then 7, 6, and then 1, 3, 9 underneath. Okay, so because I've now got the square brackets around this, we can now call this a matrix. So if I take like this number 7, for example, okay, so this number 7 is going to be in row 1, because it's the first row, but then it's the second column. Okay, so we call that row 1, column 2. So I'm just going to write this at the side here. So see if you've got coloured pens, feel free to use the coloured pens here as well. Right, 7 is in row 1, column 2. Alright, and likewise if I take this number 9, so number 9, that's now your second row, but it's your third column. Okay, so we say this is in row 2, column 3. Okay, so that's just a bit of background information about different rows and columns and how a matrix is set up. Okay, now this matrix has got a certain order. Okay, and this part's important. So it says here, this matrix has 2 rows and 3 columns. Full stop. It is said to be a matrix of order 2 by 3. Okay, and we just call that, it's like 2 times 3. And that's how we say like the order of this matrix. So it's 2 by 3. Now the way that I remember this is, you know how the way you draw a capital letter L, you go down and then across, and that's how we draw like the capital L. That's how I remember this. So you always go down first of all, so you count how many rows there are. Right, there's 2 rows here, and then you go across, there's 3 columns. So that's how you know what order to write it in instead of just 3 by 2. Okay, so we go down and then go across. So that's just a little bit about matrices, and then a wee bit more to finish off. So if I have this sort of matrix, for example, okay, so what we've done is we went down 2, along 2, so we can say this is order 2 by 2, like this. Okay, if I do another one, for example, make these numbers up, so 3, 1, 6, 1, 1, 1, 8, 9, 8. Okay, so if you think about what order this is, so we went down 3 and then along 3, so we say this is a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, now both of these matrices are special because they make a square sort of shape. So we just say that they're called square matrices. So I'll just label that there like this. Okay, there's 2 more types of matrices you could get. So for example, this one here, That's got the order of 1 because you went down 1 along 2. So we'll call that a 1 by 2. This is called a row matrix because you've only got one row in there. So row matrix. Okay, and likewise, if you have like 2, 1 for your matrix here, this is called a column matrix because it's just in the shape of a column here. So you went down 2 along 1, so this has got order 2 by 1, and we call this a column matrix. Okay, so that's just a little bit of background information about matrices, what they look like and how we call them. What we're going to go on to next is how we add and subtract matrices. So I'm just going to take a new page in the notes here, and I'm just going to write in add and subtract as our heading. Okay, so add and subtract. Like this. Okay, so for example, if you have the matrix A, so let's call this A, B, C, D. So that's a 2 by 2 square matrix. If you have B, let's call that E, F, G, H. Again, we've got a 2 by 2 matrix, and if I call C, we'll do a 2 by 3 matrix, so it's I, J, K, L, M, N. Okay, so we've got a 2 by 3 matrix here. Okay, so you don't need to write in what order they are each time. Okay, so if I was trying to work out A add B, for example, so I'm going to add A and I'm going to add B. Now, the main thing to remember here is that in order to add or subtract matrices, they need to be the same order. Okay, so if I was trying to do A take away C, I could not do that because I've got a 2 by 2 here, but here I've got a 2 by 3, so that just is impossible, it won't work. So it needs to be the same order of matrices, and I'm just going to put a wee note in that here, just here, so must be the same order to add and subtract. Okay, so this rule only applies for adding and subtracting, not necessarily multiplying. Right, so if I was going to work out A add B, what you would do is you would just look at the top left hand corner, so row 1, column 1, and you just add both of them together. So I've got A here and I've got E here, so if I add them together, that's just going to give me A add E, and that goes in your top left corner. Then you go to your top right corners, so I've got B and F, so add them together, it just gives you B add F. Okay, so you just look at the same bit in the matrix and make sure you add them two together. Right, same with the C and G, the bottom left hand corner, C add G, and then it's going to be D add H. Okay, so obviously we don't have any numbers in here, but that's just to show you how you add and subtract matrices. Taking away is just the exact same, just make sure you take away from the same bit in the matrix, the same row and the same column number. And that's it. Okay, so I'm not going to go through any more examples for adding and subtracting because it is that straightforward. What I do want you to do is to work through these questions. Okay, so can you pause the video? And there are 8 questions here. Can you work through it? I've got the answers down below, and that's just because you don't have your textbook. Okay, so feel free to pause the video right now, and then in a few seconds I'm going to go on and do multiplying matrices. Okay, so make sure you're finished all that, make sure you've corrected your answers at the bottom, and then take a new page into your notes jotter. Now this one's not as straightforward. So multiplying matrices. Okay, so I am just going to go through a few examples with you. Okay, so number 1, if you have a matrix A, for example, you're trying to multiply it by a number, say 4. All you do is you multiply every single thing in that matrix by 4. Okay, so let's write in examples. Number 1. So if A equals, let's do 0, -4, 3 and 10. Find 5A. Okay, so what we're looking to do in this question is to multiply that full matrix by 5. And it's just as straightforward as multiplying every single thing in that matrix by 5. So 5 times 0 is just 5. 5 times -4, it gives you -20, and then on your bottom here, that gives you 15 and 50. And then that's you done. Okay, so that's the easiest one. If you're multiplying a matrix by a set number, then you just multiply everything by that. Right, that's the easy ones. Here comes the difficult ones. Okay, so number 2, what we're going to focus on is multiplying a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2. Okay, so it's 2 square matrices. Okay, so I'll just take a wee subheading, multiplying 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2. Okay, so if I am trying to work out A times B, okay, so I'm just going to make up what A and B is. So call A just A, B, C, D. And then B, the 2 by 2 matrix as well, let's call that E, F, G, H. Okay, here's the hard part, and I wish I was there in person to show you how to do this. It's quite hard to tell over a video like this. Right, what we're going to do is you're going to take your 2 fingers, okay, and I want you to put one finger on A and then put the other finger on the E here, okay. So what we do is we multiply them together. That gives me AE, and then your left finger always moves along, so move that along to the B, and then your right finger, which is on the E, moves down. Okay, so your fingers now on your B and the G, and you need to multiply them together and add it to this, right? And that's just your top left hand bit. Okay, so left finger was on A, right finger was on E. You multiply them together, and then you go along and then down, gives your BG. So you multiply them. Okay, and that's how you multiply these together. That's just your top left part. Okay, right, let's go into the top right part of this matrix. What we're going to do is you're going to start with the letter A, because it's row 1, but it's now on column 2. So your left finger should be on A, then your right finger should be on F. Multiply them together, gives you AF. Then your left finger always moves along, so it's on the B right now, then your right finger always moves down. So that's on the H. So B times H just gives you BH. Okay, so I'm just going to write a wee note in here. Left finger along, right finger down. Okay, and that's the rules that you follow. Right, that's the first 2 terms of this matrix. Now let's get the bottom left one. So I want to get this one. So it's row 2, column 1. So I'm going to start at row 2 here. So that's the C. And then I'm going to start at the E. So you always start at the top here, because it's row 2, column 1. So C times E just gives you CE. Then your left finger moves along to the D, and then your right finger moves down to G. So D times G just gives you DG. Okay, trust me, it's so much easier if you do this with your fingers. Okay, and the bottom right hand term, so that obviously you're trying to get the bottom right one, which is row 2, column 2. So you start here at row 2, so it's C, and you start at column 2, so it's F. So C times F just gives you CF. Then this finger moves along one to the D, and then this finger moves down one to H, so it's DH. Okay, and then what you're going to end with is a 2 by 2 matrix, which you would expect, because if you're multiplying a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2, you're expecting a 2 by 2 in your final answer here. Okay, and then you'd obviously just simplify that. Okay, so that was quite difficult, but you've got it in your notes jotter how to do this. Just remember, left finger always moves along, and then right finger always moves down. Okay, I do have some examples here. Let me have a look. Right, we'll do some more notes first and then you can practice some of those examples. Okay, so that's how you multiply a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2. Right, what we do now is show you rules for multiplying a 3 by 3 by a 3 by 3. Okay, and again we're following the same rules. Left finger moves along and right finger moves down. So multiplying a 3 by 3 by a 3 by 3. Okay, so this is going to get a little bit messy. So I'm just going to make up the two matrices here. So a 3 by 3, so let's just call it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And then your other one is just going to be J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the same rules. Okay, right, use your two fingers for this. Okay, so I want the top left hand one. Okay, so I'm going to have row 1, column 1. So my left finger is starting on A. The right finger is starting on the J. Okay, multiply those two together. So A times J gives you A J. Left finger moves along. Right finger moves down. Okay, so I'm now at the BM. So I'm going to add the multiple of B and M. Left finger moves along to C. The right finger moves down again to P. So plus C, P. Right, and that's your top left hand corner. Right, now let's look at the top middle corner. So top middle is still going to be row 1, but it's column 2 here. So you start at row 1 and then you start at column 2. So you're starting with the A and the K, and that's what you're multiplying together. So A times K just gives you AK. Left finger always moves along, so it's now at the B. Right finger always moves down, so it's now at the N. So B times N just gives you BN. Left finger moves along to the C, right finger moves down to the Q. And that's your top middle term. Okay, as you can see, there are a lot of places where you could make a mistake here. Okay, but just keep the rules of left finger moves along, right finger moves down, and you'll be fine. Okay, next one at the top right hand corner, so it's row 1, column 3. So we're going to start with the A and then the L in this case. So A times L just gives me AL. Move along one to the B, down one to the O, so BO. Along one to the C and down one to the R, CR. Okay, you probably try finish the rest of yourself. So here you're at row 2, column 1. So start at row 2, so it's the D and then the J. So D, J, move along and down, EM, along and down, FP. Middle term, the D and the K. So DK, move along and down, EN, along and down, FQ. This one is row 2, column 3. So it's the D and L. Move along and down, EO, along and down, FR. Right, 3 more. Okay, so we're going to start with the G and the J. So G, J. Move along and down, HM, along and down, IP. Right, the GK, along and down, HN, along and down, IQ. Last one, GL, along and down, HO, along and down, IR. Okay, obviously you would just tidy this up if you're multiplying a 3 by 3 by a 3 by 3. Okay, so that's how you would do that. Okay, right, next one. So number 4. So far what we've done with multiplying is just multiplying two things with the same order. So at number 2 we did a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2, and then number 3 we did a 3 by 3 by a 3 by 3. Okay, technically you can multiply things with different orders, but you do need to do a little check first of all, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So multiplying matrices with different orders. Okay, so let the matrix A equal to, so we're going to have a 3 by 2, so minus 1, 2, 0, 3, minus 2, 1. And B is going to be equal to, so we're going to have a 2 by 3 here. So on the first row, minus 1, 2, minus 2, then 3, 1, 0 on the bottom. Okay, now see if you're unsure whether you can multiply these two together. What I want you to do is to write down the order of both of them underneath. So here, if you go down and along, this is a 3 by 2. Okay, and if you look at matrix B, if you go down and along, this gives you a 2 by 3. Okay, so the wee check that I was on about is see if the inside numbers are the same. Okay, so what I mean by the inside numbers, the two numbers just basically in the inside. So if they're the same, then the multiple AB exists. Okay, so that's your wee check. Okay, so I'll just write inside here. So inside numbers must be the same. For AB, that's just your multiple, A times B, to exist. Okay, so we've got them the same now, okay, so that's good. And then your two outside numbers, so I've got my 3 and 3, that just tells you what the new matrix is going to look like. So your final answer will be a 3 by 3. Just like this. Okay, now don't copy this next part in. It's just to show you. See if we were trying to work out BA, for example. So instead of A times B, if we're working out BA, so B is going to be a 2 times 3. That's the order for B. And then the order for A is a 3 times 2. Would that work? So the inside numbers, that's the same. You get a 3 by 3, so that works. And your answer is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. So you're always told that the multiples, so like if I said 2 times 3, that gives you 6. And if you swap them around 3 times 2, you also get 6. Those rules do not apply for matrices. So AB and then BA will give you a completely different matrix. Because AB gives you a 3 by 3, whereas a BA would give you a 2 by 2 matrix as your final answer. So it does matter what order these go in. Okay, that's just a wee check to make sure you can multiply them. Right, let's go on and do one example and then you can practice them by yourself. Okay, so this is quite a long lesson. So number 5. Find A, B. Or write in what A and B is in your answer. See if it's right twice. Okay, so A is going to be minus 1, but it's the same as 4, isn't it? So minus 1, 2, 0, 3, minus 2, 1. And then B was minus 1, 2, minus 2, 3, 1, 0. Okay, so this was the same one that we just did there, wasn't it? In the previous one. Yes, so we're actually going to work out what AB is going to be. So we've done our rechecks, so we are allowed to multiply these. Our final answer we're expecting is going to be a 3 by 3. Expecting a square matrix as our answer. Okay, so we're going to multiply them together. I'm just going to show working for this, but feel free to do it in your head just to save some time. So I am expecting a 3 by 3. So what I'm going to do is start with row 1, column 1. So it's the minus 1 times minus 1. Okay, now I know that gives me 1, but I'm just going to show working here just in case you need to look back at it. Okay, left finger always moves along, right finger always moves down. So left finger's moving along 2, the right finger's moving down to 3. So 2 times 3. So that top left hand corner is just 1 add 6, which is just going to be 7 here. Okay, right, let's do the middle term. So I'm going to start with row 1, column 2. So it's the -1 times 2. And then this finger is moving along 1 to the 2, and then down 1 to the 1. So 2 times 1 is what you're adding on. Right, I'm just going to finish all my work and then I can put it all together as the final answer here. Okay, so top right hand corner, that's going to be starting with the -1 and then your 2. So -1 times -2. And then your right finger moves along. So it's going to be the 2 and then the 0. Okay, so you don't need to show this much working. Right, onto the middle line. So I'm going to start with the -1, and because we're on row 1, column 2 here. So I'm starting with the 0. Hold on. Yeah, I'm starting with the 0 and then the -1, sorry. So 0 and -1, because this finger moves along and this finger moves down. So 0 times -1, plus this one moves along to the 3, this one moves down to the 3 as well. So it's plus 3, 3. Okay, this one I'm going to start with the 0 and the 2. Then this one moves along and this one moves down, so it's 3, 1. And then this one here is the 0 and the -2. Then this one moves along to the 3 and then down to the 0. Okay folks, we're nearly finished, bear with me. So here we're on the bottom left one, so it's the -2 and the -1 we're starting with. Add, move along, move down, so it's the 1, 3. Middle one, so it's the -2, 2. Add, move along, and then down, 1, 1. Final one, -2, -2. Add, 1, 0. Right, that's a lot of work in there. Okay, you could have done all that in your head. Okay, all we need to do is simplify this. So the top middle one, you're going to have -2 plus 2, which is just 0. Here you're just going to have 2 plus 0, it's just 2. Here that's going to be 0 plus 9, just 9. 0 add 3, which is 3. This is 0 add 0, which is just 0. Bottom row, that's 2 add 3, which is 5. This one's going to be -4 add 1, which is -3. This one is going to be 4 add 0, so it's just 4. Okay, so you could just go straight to that if you were able to do that just in your head and work through this. Okay, so they're quite long questions, but that is how you get the final answer. Okay, so I'd like you to practice some by yourself now. So I'll just get them on the next screen. Okay, so there's not a lot of questions here. So if you're able to go through these 4 questions and work through them by yourself. Okay, I'll pause the screen now and then I'll put the answers up in a couple of seconds. Okay guys, so here are the answers for those questions.